Welcome back, Outside the Box Familia. This is episode 19.
Episode 19. And today we're going to tell you why people on the East Coast are scrambling to fill up their gas tanks.
Yep, we're also going to be talking about the third highest ranking Republican in the House conference. Why was she just voted out by her own party from her leadership role? And we're also going to talk about Ellen DeGeneres. She is saying goodbye to her show.
As always, don't forget to share this broadcast. If you're watching on Facebook, like it, share it. More importantly, comment so we can see your comments after the show. We love to read them. Also, if you're on YouTube, our YouTube familia, we don't forget about you. Thank you for helping us reach almost 200 subscribers. Outside the box, let's get started.
Let's do it. All right, let's start with our first topic. A growing number of gas stations along the East Coast are without fuel after hackers disrupted the operator of a major pipeline that transports fuel across the East Coast. As expected, people are panicking and trying to stock up on gas. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis declared a gasoline-related state of emergency last night, and several gas stations in several states have already run out of gas. Other governors have also taken measures to try and deal with this situation. Wadi, what has the federal government's response been to the situation?
Look, Claudia, I really think they're kind of all over the place. I mean, one of the key questions is who's in charge? What agency? What government agencies overseeing this entire process? And we don't seem to have that answer. There's involvement from the FBI, who's investigating the matter. Homeland Security is involved. The Biden administration is closely working and being briefed on this topic, but no one can answer who's in charge and what is the exact protocol that they're taking. We do know that these different agencies are working with a private company. Part of what they're trying to do is to make sure, one, to understand the attack, to understand sort of the timeline and the steps behind what has happened, and also trying to make sure that other companies, especially companies that deal with the infrastructure of our nation, are aware of these steps because they want to make sure that they prevent this in the long term because of the implications that this can have to our future. But at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a lot of lessons learned when it comes to what the government is doing in this space.
Thank you, Wadi. And the authorities are also saying, don't panic buy gas. It's not like toilet paper. It will go bad. JP, a commissioner on the Federal Energy Commission also told CNN that this is a real wake-up call because the incident shows how vulnerable the United States in the infrastructure is to cyber attacks. This will definitely have a political impact in the future. What are your thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, well, this is a wake-up call. This has been a wake-up call for a while. Our government has been on notice that cyber attacks or cyber warfare is a really big threat, not only to our nation, but to the world as a whole. Here we have a big industry, the gas industry, that affects so many millions of families. When prices start going up or there's a scarcity, we know Americans don't like that. So right now, Wadi explained it perfectly. What is the infrastructure that we're setting up? Now, President Joe Biden, there's a rumor right now that he's definitely mulling over whether he's going to sign an executive order to create an infrastructure between private companies and the federal government, and for those private companies to report to the federal government when they have been a victim of cyber attack. But there's so many nuances that still have to go over and still have to be approved by the American public, because let's not forget, executive orders, as Wadi has said over and over again, are just band-aids, temporary band-aids. Congressional oversight is what we need here, because this is a very new reality and can affect not only right now we're seeing in the gas industry, but imagine other industries continuously being affected by this. From anyone who is well versed in hacking, we can't prevent all types of hacks. But what we can do is have a system in place once the bleeding starts, which we don't have right now. And that's why we're seeing the shortage and scarcity on the East Coast.
Yeah, I hope the shortage doesn't affect us here in California either, because gas is so expensive. I just pumped earlier today and it was like $4 a gallon. And I'm just like, oh God, not again.
Facts.
I can't afford $5-6 in the summer.
That would be wild, Claudia, without a doubt. And JP, I'll add, what I think is going to be interesting on the next steps on the government side is to make sure that they don't take too many steps forward. You can't have it's important for this to be, I think, a partnership with the private sector and not get to the point where there's over regulation when it comes to this topic. But mi gente, will continue to monitor this subject and update you guys. Switching over to another topic, which is really front and center when it comes to all the news you're seeing across all the social media, but it's really the ousting of Liz Cheney. She is known for being the third highest ranking Republican after the House GOP leader, as well as the whip. She is the highest ranking female within the GOP in the House right now, but a small group of Republicans have come out against her. I would say a large group, actually. But a small group, which she is a part of, voted against Trump when it came to the impeachment process. So she has been seen as essentially an enemy of Trump in this topic. So it's going to be very curious to see the development on this. JP, what is Liz Cheney saying about this situation?
Today she said, bring it on. Basically, she has high hopes. We know that her political career, she has family lineage, Dick Cheney, who have high hopes for her career, not only within her current seat, but there are rumors that she wants to run for presidency as well. When that will happen, we don't know. But what we're seeing here is a big, big fight over the microphone. Who's going to take definitely that microphone in the Republican Party after having someone at the helm of it for 4 years who was very divisive? Now, what we're seeing is in Congress, there are still congressional representatives that strongly support Trump's message, strongly support what he believes in. And right now, this controversy really, really started over whether or not Liz Cheney agreed with some members of the Republican Party saying that the election was stolen. Let's be very clear. There are Republicans, moderate Republicans, who didn't agree with the decisions that Trump was making. There are moderate Republicans that want to see the party be reformed and move more center. Now, we're seeing the other side as well. The same thing happens on the other side because this country right now has a two-party system. And within that two-party system, you're seeing the ranges of difference, right? Here we have Liz Cheney, and here we have those that support Trump. Where this is going to end, we'll see. But I'll tell you this, it'd be very, very interesting to see a Liz Cheney versus Trump come 2024. We'll see.
That would be very interesting. And I've said that. I've said it on the show before. We need a two-party system. We are over 300 million Americans here, and there's just no way that that all of our opinions and everything are going to fit into two parties. And I agree. Go Liz Cheney. She spoke her truth today. Keep doing that, and let's hope there's a new party system. There's a new moderate.
Wadi, how do you think this plays out? Yeah. Wadi, how do you think this plays out with the demo as a whole, especially for women voters? Those who would support a Liz Cheney, where does it leave voters like them?
Yeah, I think it's going to add pressure to the current House GOP. What I mean by that is that Liz Cheney, I think, in this entire situation is evidence that the current House GOP continues to be a product of Donald Trump. Many House GOP members benefited from the increase in the turnout rate in favor of Republicans in 2016, and even some of the high numbers that we saw of turnout of Republicans in some of these key districts in 2020. These members now that Trump is not around have to walk, I think, a fine line. Liz Cheney puts them in a situation where they now have to go back home and they have to answer to some of these younger voters, have to answer to women voters. What the GOP is trying to do is by taking out Liz Cheney, they are now putting in, I don't know if it's official, but they're looking at New York Representative Stefanik, who's a young leader from New York. She is also female, and I think will somewhat fill that void of having a more diverse GOP leadership group. So it's going to be interesting to see what the impact is in the next few months.
Yeah, definitely. So interesting to see not only just how the party responds to this, but also to see Republican commentators such as Meghan McCain commenting today and being so upset with watching what transpired. Where did these voters go? Where did the independents go after seeing this? Something that the Republicans need for this next election because they know they missed out on that. Moving on to another topic, the United States is continuously seeing a rise in mass shootings with over 200 mass shootings that have taken place this year in the United States, and more than 15,000 people have died due to gun-related violence. Just this past weekend, a man fatally shot down 6 people at a birthday party in Colorado Springs. According to the authorities, the gunman had been dating one of the victims and was upset because he was not invited to the celebration.
Guys, we have addressed the never-ending debate here over gun control on this show. Has anything changed under the Biden administration?
Look, the reality is that it hasn't, at least not in a significant way. The reality will continue to be that in order for there to be any kind of reform, it will have to come through the legislative branch. Congress will have to work together to get something to the president's desk. However, I think this situation, this shooting over the weekend is an example of how complex this topic is. From reports, I have seen that the way this gun was obtained was illegally. The murderer in this case did not get this through the legal channels that exist to obtain a gun. So there's no real evidence that existing laws or previous or future laws would have necessarily prevented this. At the end of the day, I think the conversation has to revolve around gun violence. It's not about can we take guns away from people. It's about how do we make sure that the right citizens who have that Second Amendment right qualify or pass the necessary background checks to get their gun. It's about keeping guns out of bad people and reducing gun violence across the country.
Thank you, Wadi. JP, what do you think it will take to control the gun problem here in America?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult question to answer, and our congressional representatives haven't been able to answer that for so many years. We know that the majority of Americans agree that we should have better checks and balances when it comes to how people are able to obtain guns. However, as we talked about before, I think many people limit this debate. Are you pro-gun or are you anti-gun? Do you want guns on the streets or do you want guns off the streets? And what we know is there is a very large block that isn't going away in this nation that believe in their constitutional right to bear arms. They believe in not only in order to protect themselves, but also as a form and a way to regulate as much involvement as the government has with normal day people and making decisions for them. So here we have very big lobbyist groups that are against any sort of reform. However, if you look at the polls, there is movement and there is support for people who want common sense regulations, such as having a federal ban watch list where it would be easy for people to look up, or those owners of gun shops to look up those who have been banned from buying guns, having more stringent background checks. Let's be clear, there are background checks already in our nation when buying a gun. They would just want to be more stringent, and also wait times when buying a gun and actually receiving it. Whether this happens, the narrative is going to have to change. We talked about it last show. Both sides are going to have to come together and start arguing about things that are not going to produce what we need to do, which is reach across the aisle. Gun reform is not going to happen unless that happens.
Thank you, JP. I would definitely like to see gun violence decrease in our country. It's definitely needed. Let's move on to another topic that the U.S. is facing, a very important issue: unemployment. Millions of people are still unemployed, yet businesses, small businesses, and companies are saying that it's very hard to find workers. Sectors like manufacturing, restaurants, and construction are the most affected. Wadi, what is the root cause of this? Some say it's the fear of catching COVID. Others are saying it's because companies are competing with unemployment benefits.
Claudia, I think it's no secret that I think we all either know someone or have heard of someone or possibly even read an article about how there are some individuals out there who would prefer to collect the unemployment check either because they're making essentially the same kind of money but get to stay at home, or second, because they're possibly even making more money than they would if they return to their jobs. That's a reality, and that's something that I think governors and the federal administration is going to have to tackle. But a reality and a key factor in this conversation is that there are still some individuals who fear going back to work. And that might be because of specific conditions that they make them more vulnerable to COVID. It might just be to a true existence of fear against COVID. There are several factors that go into this. So I don't think it's fair, one, to paint an entire community or of individuals in unemployment with a broad brush and say they are fit all into one category. What I do think it's important is for governors to look at the labor shortages in their states, look at the amount of employment opportunity that exists, and start creating incentives for individuals to return to work. I think I saw a proposal from a Republican governor that said that what they're going to do is start requiring individuals to prove that they have been looking for work, to prove that they have gone to at least a minimum of 5 applications or interviews to be able to continue collecting sort of that extra amount of unemployment.
Thank you, Wadi. JP, what is the government doing at both state and federal levels?
So the federal government, President Biden and his administration, as we discussed on previous shows, is trying to pass an infrastructure bill that would potentially create hundreds of millions of jobs within the United States over a period of years. Also, we know that last year, there's that the stimulus effect, as far as families all over the nation receiving an amount of money to where they could save and they could plan. But let's not negate that last year absolutely rocked everyone on so many levels. And we'll talk about the mental health aspect later. But yes, right now in this very moment, there's no surprise to me that I think the majority of the American public are in this wait and see phase. They're waiting and seeing what happens. Is the government going to pass another piece of legislation that is going to elongate these benefits, unemployment benefits, another stimulus check, right? So we're in this wait and see period with the American public, but I also think that the US work landscape has changed and is evolving into something different, so that the majority of that workforce that would usually take jobs at restaurants or jobs that were temporary are no longer looking at those type of jobs because they're aspiring for something different within this new economy, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's building their own brands, starting their own entrepreneurial journeys. The numbers are still yet to reflect how we're going to get out of this. But I like the plans that some governors are putting out there as far as definitely incentivizing people to get back to work. But also our current governor here in California is definitely presenting that every California citizen is going to receive $600, which is something that we're going to have to look to see how that affects what we're currently talking about.
Yeah,
I'm about to move to California,
about,
JP.
6 bills on it, Wadi. Let's go.
Don't be surprised if you see me out there collecting that stimmy.
Hey, you're welcome.
You're welcome anytime in California, Wadi. We'd love to have you. But also, you were saying too, there people have had a lot of downtime, so they could have switched careers. People could have gone back to school during that downtime. Hey, if I was unemployed, I'd be thinking maybe I should be a nurse because I know that's an essential job. So the workforce has changed. Also, now with all of the vaccines, 220 million Americans have been vaccinated, maybe more at this point. And I wonder if that's also going to change some of the politics here and maybe get rid of unemployment. I don't know. Well, I think everyone's in a wait and see period, like you said. All right, guys, let's move on to our favorite segment, Quick Takes. The wait is almost over. The wait is almost over for the premiere of Oprah and Prince Harry's docuseries, The Me You Can't See. During this series, they will guide discussions about mental health and emotional well-being and are expected for them themselves to open up about their struggles. JP, Wadi, what's your quick take?
You love to see it. You love to see these celebrities and public figures use their platforms for something that's so important, especially because of what we just talked about. The pandemic, the suicide rate obviously climbed high, and we definitely need to bring awareness to this month, which is such an important month. It's something new, especially for our Latino community, right? Our Latino community doesn't like to talk about these issues as openly. I'd like to see people from our own community, leaders of affluence in our own community, definitely start creating content that speaks to this very big need for our community that needs it.
I agree with you, JP. This is a super important topic, especially for our Latino community, because this is such a taboo topic, mental health. The only critique that I have here is that Oprah and Prince Harry, they're going to bring Glenn Close, they're going to bring Lakers stars. I think Lady Gaga is also going to be featured on this show. A few people and some people, and also myself personally, I don't feel like I relate to the royals. I relate to Oprah because we just have such different backgrounds. So I wish they would have brought, I guess, more common people, have a mix of everything, because I'm not trying to say that Lady Gaga's mental health issues aren't valid, because of course they 100% are. And I'm really glad that they are doing this and opening up that conversation. But I would have liked to seen a mix of regular folks and celebrities. Wadi, what's your quick take?
Yeah, it's such an important topic. I think there are a lot of either negative stigmas around mental health and mental illness, but there's also just a lack of knowledge, a lack of information that a lot of people have. Look, I don't have a lot of facts to share, but what I can share, and I have done on this show before, is that I grew up in a household where one of my parents continues to suffer with mental illness, with bipolar depression. It is the single most event that has really impacted my life. And I know that there's difficulty, not only when you're not even if you're not the one dealing with it, but if you're working with a family member or a friend who has it. So I think it's important that these conversations are being had, where May is Mental Health Awareness Month. There needs to continue to be conversation about this. And we need to be, I think, open-minded and being willing to learn more about how we can be an ally to individuals in this area, how we can be of support, because it's very difficult, but a very important topic that we should continue to have a conversation on. Very glad that we're talking about here in OTB. Again, very glad that everyone's having this conversation across the board. But familia, cambiando un poquito el tema, switching the subject a little bit now, is to the Golden Globes. This year, things are not looking good for them. They have decided actually to not put on the award show this year. Here's what we know. We know that NBC has announced that they will not be airing the ceremony due to the criticisms that the Hollywood Foreign Press Association has received due to its lack of diversity. Even the actor Tom Cruise has returned his 3 Golden Globes as a sign of protest.
Yeah,
JP,
definitely.
Claudia,
I think this is.
I mean,
Yeah, this is definitely something that's needed. You have top Hollywood actors such as Tom Cruise, Scarlett Johansson returning some of their Golden Globes that they received and saying, we need these adjustments that were promised years ago, but there's no oversight and there's no changes. Right now, the HFPA, 0 black members, 0 credibility.
I agree with JP. We need more representation. And honestly, Golden Globes award season, it's tanking. Ratings are tanking. This might just be the end of the Golden Globes, honestly, if they don't get it together. And even if they do get it together, it might still be the end, to be honest. Award season. I haven't been really watching it lately.
Yeah, well, this might be your favorite quick take story, Claudia. J-Lo and Ben Affleck have been seen together over the weekend in Montana. Also, you have A-Rod walking away from his office today, and when followed by a camera answering the question what he thought about it, he said, "Go Yankees." That's some shade for you, Wadi.
Look, here's what I know, JP. I'm on standby for the Jennifer Lopez tell-all book, because there's definitely a story there. There's a lot of behind the scenes in all our relationships. I think a lot of people would be willing to buy the book, stick around for the docuseries. But look, the other thing I will say is J-Lo has a history of, I don't know if to call it a rebound or to call it just moving on. And it seems that she's moved on. I'm not sure if this is long-term with Ben Affleck, but she has moved on. Many people were sort of playing around when Tom Brady won his 6th, possible 7th ring, that J-Lo with the A-Rod ring was in competition with him. What I'm curious to see if people are going to only allow J-Lo to use a ring from Ben Affleck to count as one time, or if they end up getting engaged one more time, does it count twice?
I don't know if they'll get engaged. I see this more as a rebound. I mean, as much as I love Bennifer, but then again, I don't know. J-Lo might surprise me for the 50th time again. She kind of reminds me of that friend in high school. I'm sure you guys had a friend like this that always had a boyfriend, could not be single, or a girlfriend for a minute, always had to be with somebody. But you know what? It's her life. J-Lo's going to do what she wants to do. I'm happy she went to Montana. She had a great time. That's what A-Rod gets for DMing Madison LaCroix when he's engaged to J-Lo. So that's that. Let's move on to another thing that's ending. And that's the Ellen DeGeneres show. She's planning to end her talk show in 2022. She made the announcement today stating that the show is no longer a challenge. However, this announcement comes just months after allegations of workplace toxicity surfaced and prompted an internal investigation. Wadi, JP, what are your quick takes?
I think this shouldn't come as a surprise. I mean, her investigation, which honestly, I haven't really seen the results, but at the end of the day, the investigation, I think, tainted her reputation, tainted the show, and the viewership is down. I think a lot of people held up Ellen DeGeneres as really as the golden standard, as the person who is a celebrity and down to earth and really has nothing wrong in her arena. But again, this scandal and toxicity really came and tainted her show. I think she's seen the writing on the wall, and that's why she's moving on. She's not going to stop being a celebrity, but will she stop being a host for this show?
That's true. And you know what's interesting? I had heard this rumor living here in LA for like, I don't know if you heard it too, JP, maybe in the last 10 years that working for Ellen was actually very toxic. But I think cancel culture within the last few years, how cancel culture has gotten so big, I think that's what finally did it. JP, what's your quick take?
Yeah, no doubt in my mind that cancel culture really affected her and her decision not to move on anymore. I think this was a very personal decision for her. I know she wanted to do it right when everything was happening. She was over it. 19 years of television is very strenuous on the body. It's very strenuous on mental health, very strenuous. Every day you're waking up, having to be up on trends. Everyone likes to focus on the negative, but today I'd like to focus on the positive. Let's keep in mind that Ellen was able to bring brands and people of influence to give back to community members or people who are doing important things. She was able to also bring tech into her show, to bring all that money that they have to give back to organizations, to give back to communities for years. And she was able to do that with her name, with her reputation. Now, as far as the background stuff, all the stuff negative that we heard that has unraveled throughout these years, whether or not those are true, we may never know. But what I can say is a lot of families were affected by the things that she tried to do that were positive, even with just a simple dance. I liked her show, as you can tell. I'm going to miss it. We'll see what she's going to do next in her career.
And speaking of her media, her podcast, Ellen on the Go, I just want to say that Claudia on the Go came first. Okay. Just want to make that clear. All right, guys.
We got to get you an attorney.
For sure. Hey, you're an attorney. Back me up. All right, fam. That's all for tonight. Make sure to leave us comments. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, fam, we love to hear from you. And please help us spread the word. Tell your friends and families. Make sure that they subscribe and they follow us.
You can follow the host at Wadi Gaitan, at the Claudia on the Go on Instagram, and me at JP Dominguez. Don't forget about our Instagram page at OTB Show. We post all our clips. We're there engaging with you on the daily. So we definitely like to hear your opinions. We'll see you next week. Episode 20 on the horizon. Let's go, fam.
See you, fam.